Excellence. It is my pleasure to welcome each and everyone for the webinar that is organized by Center for Water and Sanitation, Center for Planning, Environment Planning and Technology Research Foundation, Center for Environment Planning and Technology, CEPT University, in partnership with Global Sanitation Center of Excellence and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So as rightly said, this is the third of the series, which is covering ISO 24521 on the guidelines of basic on-site domestic wastewater services, which includes maintenance techniques, training of personnel and risk considerations, also the on-site domestic wastewater services from the perspective of even the users, design and construction of basic on-site domestic wastewater systems, also on the planning, operation, maintenance, and health and safety issues. So I welcome Mr. Kim, who will be moderating the session. Also the other keynote speakers, Mr. Alok Kumar Mishra, who is the director, Nepal Bureau of Standards and Meteorology, Mr. Frederick Kate, co-convener of working group on-site domestic wastewater management, Ms. Bhavna Sharma, Executive Director of Environmental and Public Health Organization, Mr. Ron, Executive Director, Eco Thrive Initiatives, and Ms. Rosie Singh, Project Manager of Environment and Public Health Organization, who are the eminent speakers of this webinar series, and also all the other participants for this webinar. So together we can make this webinar a very valuable experience for all the people who are involved. So with this, I welcome once again for being part of the webinar series, and let's dive in and explore more on the most wanted topic. Thank you everyone and welcome once again.
Great, thank you, Dr. Mehta and also Devanasana. It is really a great pleasure to be here with everyone, and I hope this will be a very informative and helpful webinar. So this is the third webinar. The second webinar was on an ISO standard related to a product, and this we're taking a little bit of a change here to a management guideline. So it's an ISO standard, but it's a management guideline. And introducing a topic of ISO 24521 and this is a guideline for on-site sanitation systems. So Mr. Frederick Kate will be introducing this next session. Mr. Kate is a professional engineer and managing director and partner at GWCC, which is an international consulting company for water and waste engineering and management in Vienna, Austria. He's been active in national and international standardization within ISO and also the European CEN since 1991. Since 2014, he has been a support officer on ISO Technical Committee 224 Working Group number 8 for on-site domestic wastewater management, which is the topic for the day. Mr. Kate has a Master's of Science in Civil Engineering and Water Management from the University of Natural Resources and Life Sciences, Vienna, Austria. With that, I will hand it over to Mr. Kate.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, and good day, and good evening. And my presentation, of you sharing it now, please. Now it's coming onto the screen. Very good. So, you have to start at the beginning, huh? Yeah, okay. So I have the pleasure to introduce the standard ISO 24521, which is guidance on management of on-site domestic waste, basic on-site domestic wastewater system. Could you go to the next slide, please? I would like to begin with the rationale, and going back to the very beginning of this development of this standard, to the first proposal that was made in September 2010. And this is still valid. What was presented at that time as justification. That is a matter of dignity and social development, and also protection of the environment, and for the reuse of composted waste, the protection of water sources, and naturally, the question that so many billion people have no access to adequate hygienic sanitation facilities. And here, this situation has not changed actually in its basically since then. The scope of the standard is that we would like to have provision for safe disposal of human waste, environmentally sound transportation and reuse, and also appropriate technical methods. So this next slide, please. A brief history of the development of the standard is that the first ideas were made by Professor Jerison Manala from Kenya and Mr. Karl Röhrhofer from Austria, who was my partner in the company. And the first proposal was made by Kenya Standards Institute in September 2010. And in the Vienna meeting of ISO TC 224, which is for the drinking water, wastewater, and stormwater management systems and services. It's was made in 2010. We had the resolutions for the creation of this WG8, which was to write a supplement on ISO 24511, which was the guidelines for management of wastewater utilities and for the assessment of wastewater utilities. So the idea was to make a supplement that deals with basic sanitation systems. The convenership was Kenya and Austria, and Kenya is still in the convener, Mr. Manala, and I am now the support officer for him. Unfortunately, Mr. Röhrhofer passed away shortly after the beginning of the work. The title of the working group and also of the standard has a couple of mutations over time. It began as on-site domestic wastewater management systems, and then it was decided, we don't want to cover everything, and it said on-site domestic wastewater management using low technology. But Mr. Swinkel might remember this development because he was already a member of that group at the time. It then changed the basic on-site domestic wastewater management, which is also in the title of the standard today, the valid standard, the published standard. And this standard, ISO 24521, was published in 2016. After every 5 years, there has to be a revision, it has to be decided if the standard has to be revised. And it was decided to revise this standard, and it will be called on-site domestic wastewater management, because not just basic systems are in use in domestic wastewater systems, but also more advanced systems are also being used, and we want to cover all of those in the future. Next slide, please. The next slide, please. Yes. To the content of 24521, the present one, the scope is is at the center of the standard, is the focal point. And here it says that it is a supplement and to be used in connection with ISO 24511, as we mentioned before. But it should be guidelines and guidance for basic on-site domestic wastewater systems management, both from the operator's perspective, but also from the user's perspective, because there can be operators that are not the users. design and construction, and then planning, operation, maintenance, and health and safety. It's applicable to public owned and privately owned systems. It's for black and gray water systems, and it's also for one or more dwellings. Excluded are acceptability limits for discharges into wastewater, into receiving waters, analytical methods, the management structure, that means the governance, how is it governed, this system, and also content of contracts. The next slide, please. Clauses 2 and 3. 2 is normative references, 3 terms and definitions. Normative references, there are several. There's a reference to 24510 and 24511, which are standards of TC 224. And after revision, will also be a reference to the vocabulary standard 24513 and to the new standard ISO 24525 operation and maintenance, which I'll present at the end of this session, presentation. Terms and definitions. There are several terms and definitions now in the standard, but after the revision, there'll be fewer definitions, as the ones that are now in the standard are already included in ISO 24513 from 2019 vocabulary. So don't be surprised when it comes out again that there'll be fewer definitions, but the definitions are still valid. The reason for 24513 is that TC 224 decided to have common definitions for all the standards developed within the technical committee. The next, please. The next one is objectives. There are 4 main objectives, also actually for all wastewater systems. That's protection of public health and safety, occupational health and safety, environmental protection, and sustainable development. And there are further considerations also for on-site domestic wastewater systems. I highlighted a few of them: optimizing the use of resources, simplicity, affordability, and willingness to pay is in consideration. Also, existing institutional support, best practice, development of ownership, but also a very important issue is cultural sensitivity. So these are now in the objectives and are described in more detail in this clause 4 objectives. Clause 5 is components. Next slide. The components in ISO 24521 differ from those that you might have seen in, for example, ISO 3180 or 800, or in other presentations. In ISO 24521, we have user interface, then we have collection, then we have transportation. In the revision, we'll have removal and transportation. Then we have treatment, and then we have disposal and reuse. The interface is also, you have ISO 3500 that deals with a certain aspect of the user interface in toilets. And you also have the sludge treatment. There's an ISO TC 275 that deals with recovery, recycling, treatment, disposal of sludge. And also there's the standard ISO 31800, which deals with fecal sludge treatment units. These components that I presented above, these 5 components, will be presented more in detail by Mr. Svinko in the following presentation. The clauses 6 and 7 on the next slide. There'll be 6 and 7 will be presented in Mr. Svinko's presentation in much more detail. So I will pass over these and go right to clause 8 and 9 on the next slide. 8 and 9 deal with operation and maintenance and health and safety. The operation and maintenance part deals mainly with developing plans and instructions for operation, maintenance, collection, removal, and transportation. And the part, clause 9, health and safety, deals with measures and especially with training, but also with public health programs. In ISO 24525, which deals, there's much more detailed guidance on operation and maintenance, and also on health and specific health and safety aspects. So there's much more detail given there. This is more the overall management viewpoint. That's the main text, are these 9 clauses. Then there are 2 annexes now. I have them in the next slide. Annex A has now the terms in English, French, and Spanish. However, in the revision, this is being deleted because it's not allowed in ISO rules to have such a glossary standard or such a standard with different languages. And in Annex B, now we have schematics of basic on-site domestic wastewater systems. Characteristics, types, and especially details from components, descriptions, pictures, and so on and so forth. In the revision, this will be replaced by an Annex A with examples of on-site domestic wastewater systems and components, and will deal with all the more basic to the most advanced systems that are used on on-site systems. That completes the presentation on ISO 2451 from the present version 216. Just now to the next slide, I have the short presentation on ISO 24525 from the fairly recent standard from 2022 on operation and maintenance of on-site domestic wastewater services. It's to supplements and to be used in conjunction with ISO 24521. So they are supposed to support each other. And the main intention of ISO 24525 is to assist relevant authorities, training organizations, professional organizations, certification bodies, and other entities when they want to develop regulations or plans and manuals or information training materials regarding on-site domestic wastewater services. Materials that are used are also for the individual users. So this ISO 24521 covers all levels of technology used in on-site domestic wastewater systems, not just the basic technology. And that's one of the major reasons for the revision of ISO 24521 that is ongoing. On the next slide, I have also 24525. The structure is, as you see, similar to 24521. We have the 5 components, and then for each of these components, we have guidelines about operation of these components, maintenance of these components, plans and instructions. We also have training and information aspects for the components and health and safety aspects. So this covers quite a spectrum of the on-site, the actual operation and maintenance of on-site domestic wastewater system. In addition to these, there are several annexes, management methods, aspects of preparation implementation, examples of checklists, examples of appropriate and inappropriate usage, frequently asked questions, pathogenic and parasitic concerns, and disinfection or removal of microorganisms in treated effluent. So these are in these annexes that additional information that would be useful for all those who are developing guidelines or training manuals or regulations regarding the operation and maintenance of on-site domestic wastewater services. Just shortly to the revision on the next slides. The revision has been ongoing since 2022 because, like I said, after all 5 years, you have to decide on a revision. The main changes are that the term basic is deleted pretty much throughout the standard. And so because both standards, the revised 24521 and the 24525 operation and maintenance contain basic and more advanced systems. There's also the harmonization with ISO 24525. when we developed this 24525, we had some experiences with 24521, and so this experience was incorporated in 24525 and is now going to be transferred on to the revision of 24521. The title, the normative references, clause names are going to be harmonized, and the contents to a certain degree also. And the new title is now going to be ISO 24521, Drinking Water, Wastewater, and Stormwater Systems and Services, Guidelines for the Management of On-Site Domestic Wastewater Services. This way, it matches both the title of the TC 224 and also the ISO 24525. The other managed main changes in the next slide are regard terms and definitions. That's one thing. Like I said before, there'll be fewer definitions because they're contained in the next slide, please. They're contained in the vocabulary. Additional objectives have been added. That means meeting the needs and expectations of users has been added. Provisions of services under normal and especially what's very important, also emergency situations, and promotion of sustainable development of the community. The Annex A, as I said before, has been deleted, and the Annex B is replaced by a new Annex A with examples of on-site domestic wastewater systems and components. The status of the revision is that the CD inquiry, the committee inquiry has been completed, and there are quite a few comments have come in from the committee members. They're being going to be dealt with at a meeting in March, in 1 month, and we expect to have a draft international standard by the summer of 2024. And the publication date has been set, or the target date for publication is the 30th of June, 2025. We are pretty good. We think we will really obtain this. So things are going quite well in the development. So that gives a short overview of the present 24521, the revisions that are coming, and also the standard 24525, which is complementary to this standard that we're dealing with today. Thank you very much for your attention, and I hope that I pass this over to Ron. He's going to give you a much more detail about 24521. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Mr. Cate. And yeah, before we move to Ron Swinko, I just wanted to, just quickly summarize this. A lot of times I talk to people and they wonder what is the point of standards and how does it affect their lives? And the reality of it is a standard like this that provides guidance to everyone is critically important, and it is really exciting. I know sometimes people wonder why I get excited about standards, but this particular standard and the associated standards, and also has the ability to transform how service is delivered, in this case of on-site sanitation. So it is quite exciting, and so thank you, Mr. Cate. We are running a little bit behind time, but we can maybe entertain one question now, or if you have a question, please type it into the chat. And maybe what we'll do is just move directly to Ron's presentation, if that's okay. And he'll be providing more details on ISO 24521 and the related elements of that. Ron is the executive director and founder of EcoThrive Initiatives Incorporated, nonprofit organization in the WASH sector, and he's had many executive positions, CEO of JET. Also, he was appointed in 2010 by the United States Secretary of Commerce as a member of the Environmental Technology Trade Advisory Committee, and served as a chair from 2012 to 2018. And of course, he participates as a U.S. representative on ISO Technical Committee 224, which is working on these particular standards that we're talking about today. But he also has been an active participant in ISO Project Committee 305 and Project Committee 318, which Mr. Kate mentioned about those product standards for the toilet as well as the fecal sludge treatment units. With that, Ron also has a Bachelor's of Science degree in chemistry from Cleveland State University, and it has an executive certificate in international management from the Thunderbird School of Global Management. So with that, here is Ron.
Thank you, Son, for that kind introduction, and thank you to Mr. Kate for providing the introduction to ISO 24521. As far as the particular standard, it's important to emphasize that 24521, as previously mentioned, is a management standard as opposed to a product performance standard. Next slide, please. So within the scope of 24521, we include basic management activities, stakeholder relations, environmental management, and risk management. And those particular aspects are important for being able to dispose of wastewater and residues in a manner that ensures drinking water supplies aren't threatened. For example, direct human exposure is not possible. The waste is not accessible to insects, rodents, or other possible carriers, and odor and aesthetic nuisances are not created. Important within that scope of the management guidelines, planning and construction is a key part of the standard, and selecting the appropriate technology has included some criteria for that, with the aspects that were described in the schematic Mr. Kate provided. In terms of developing the plans and instructions within operations and maintenance, that's been reviewed, and that is also within the standard include collection of waste and transportation of waste. Planning should also consider health and safety measures and training, and for example, items such as all users and operators need protective equipment when handling wastewater. The health protection of owners of the premises and workers providing emptying services should also be included. Creating documents and periodically reviewing health and safety precautions for users and operators, and reviewing actual health and safety situations at prescribed intervals is an important aspect of the public health program, as well as the health and safety measures. The Annex B, as Mr. Kate thoroughly discussed, includes the schematics of basic on-site domestic wastewater systems. And in fact, the new standard will also include many more advanced technologies as well. Next slide, please. The schematic here in figure B1 included in the standard shows various types of domestic wastewater systems. And those particular systems are attempting to describe in general the particular uses for communities or sites, but it may not describe all options, so not all inclusive. The standards are arranged for different conditions with the goal of offering solutions to the largest number of users and complying with the social and economic requirements. I might add that all of the figures and schematics tables shown in this presentation, unless they're otherwise noted, are part of the ISO 24521 standard. And it's interesting to note that domestic on-site systems are used even in countries where there are extensive centralized sewer systems. For example, in the US, 25% of the US population is served by on-site domestic wastewater systems. Next slide, please. Figure 2 shows the kind of the flow of information and the different aspects of the guidelines as they were developed. So the information for system function and stakeholder communications process is included, as well as aspects of determining the financial stability of the system, maintaining the sustainability of the assets, which is critical for long-term useful life, and customer communications. The objectives and strategies and processes of the system and users should be identified so that we ensure all human waste and wastewater is properly treated, and that any disposal and effluent discharge meets the expected requirements. The next slide, please. Looking at the stakeholder relations, you can see that the focus of figure 3 is ensuring that stakeholders are properly informed in all aspects of the system, as well as all aspects of communication. The management and the operation of maintenance and disposal of waste has to meet the requirements of the various stakeholders. And those stakeholders include users, the general population, regulators, local officials, and as part of that, proper education and training is important so that the stakeholders understand and support the basic system objectives. The social economic objectives are important as well in their ability to implement and operate and maintain the system. The education and training of stakeholders, as I mentioned, includes a variety of individuals and groups of people. Topics within the education and training of stakeholders include safe collection, transportation, treatment and disposal and reuse of the wastewater and residues in order to protect the human health and safety of the environment. It also includes training in health and hygienic practices to consider the cultural acceptability of the system itself. And part of the methodology for this communication to stakeholders are public awareness campaigns and school educational programs and the use of media, both print and communications and social media. Next slide, please. In terms of environmental and risk management, under environmental management, we look to promote the sustainability policy objectives for wastewater projects. That means to protect and preserve water quality and water resources, identifying preventative actions to reduce risk to crops and human health, and developing an environmental checklist for on-site domestic wastewater collection, treatment, and disposal. Some examples of the environmental checklist include number of people whose waste is collected, the expected monthly flow, confirming the quality of the flow, for example, that it does not include any commercial waste, and the proximity of the system to natural water resources and the use of these water resources. Risk management within the scope of the guidelines includes systemic approach to identifying and describing and assessing the risk of the use of the system, implementing a plan to eliminate or minimize the risks to public health and safety, and identifying potential types of problems. For example, causes of risks and types of risks. This planning process begins with planning and construction. Next slide, please. In terms of the guidelines for planning and construction, we expect sanitation planning to include individual systems and neighborhoods as well for community type systems for small villages. Requires a stakeholder involvement, as shown in the earlier slide, the importance of including all stakeholders in the planning and construction process in terms of communication and obtaining information, and raising awareness of the planning to ensure community participation, which is ultimately the most important aspect of proper use and value to the community. The economic costs should be considered, and in many cases, locally available materials and appropriate labor and technical skills are necessary for the construction of the system. The risk assessment includes public health and safety, environmental risk, and the socio-economic aspects of it. Cultural acceptance is extremely important. The relative population that will be using the system has to consider it safe. The system must be visually pleasing, and it has to be easy to use as well as affordable. Otherwise, there will be significant hurdles to providing value to the community. In terms of protection of the public health, we're looking for potential backup of systems, potentially exposed populations, and contamination of the land. In terms of protecting the environment, we are evaluating within the guidelines surface breakthrough from potential structural failure, location of residents and water wells, and the topography, for example, slopes and soils that may create effluent plumes. Next slide, please. In terms of the criteria for selecting the technologies, you can see the aspects that are considered as part of the process, and that includes the financial resources necessary for proper construction, the technical and management skills for proper operation and maintenance, whether that is an independent group or the actual user, for example, homeowner. The acceptance by the households and the local sanitation officials of the technology is important, as well as the technology being very efficient and accessible, and having a minimal operational maintenance costs so that it is continued to be used and is able to have a useful life. We're looking for example, the lifespan linked to the financial resources and the operation and maintenance costs. And by way of example, constructed wetlands, for example, require a large surface area. It's important to maintain the proper plant combinations and that there is no overflow risk during rain events. And these are some of the typical considerations that are explained in the standard guidelines. Next slide, please. The on-site domestic wastewater systems, what our objectives are is that the use of or in the disposal and treatment of basic on-site wastewater, which is considered to be water containing human body waste and human liquid waste. It can also contain gray water from washing, but no industrial or commercial waste should be considered as part of that basic on-site domestic wastewater. The systems can be individual homes or small villages, and it's important to ensure that it meets the needs and objectives of the users and communities. You can see the aspects that are included in the consideration of the systems. And in terms of guidelines, it's important that, because this is a management guideline, these can be adapted to include additional national requirements. And the guidelines also apply to various combinations of the components that will be discussed, because not all components are necessarily used in every on-site domestic wastewater system. It depends on the development of the wastewater management within the community, and treatment, in fact, may not include any treatment at all except for screening of solids and discards into the system that cannot be treated properly. Next slide, please. This slide was previously shown on Mr. Cates' presentation. And the next table will show the standards and definitions and objectives of each of these components. Next slide, please. This information for the component definitions and objectives is very complete. As Mr. Cate mentioned, removal will be included within the transportation aspect shown, and therefore in the new standard, and is not listed in table 1. With most of these systems, removal will occur as part of the transportation process. As noted, this is adapted from ISO 31800, the 2020 standard. Just a couple of examples here that are, some of which are in the standard. I should note that with the revision, the photos and schematics of user interfaces will be deleted from the standard because they're readily available on the internet, but the descriptions of these types of systems will be continue to be included in the standard. In terms of some of the photos you see here, if you look in the lower photo, the lower left, that is a manual emptying of a latrine where there is access created to the pit latrine, and then the waste is removed with shovels and buckets because the slope of the ground does not allow for truck access. However, it's important to note that as part of the guidelines, you see the workers in personal protective equipment, and that's extremely important when doing manual emptying. On the right, lower right, you see a transportation truck for transporting the sludge and delivering it to a treatment facility. So the transportation by truck of the waste is typically a little more advanced in many of the villages and that are considered as part of the standard. Next slide, please. This is a fairly complex drawing within the standard, but it differentiates the treatment requiring a large surface area as opposed to intensive treatment with a smaller footprint. The intensive treatment creates an intermediate product, partially treated effluent, as you can see on the right side of the diagram, that moves to additional extensive treatments such as ponds or intensive treatment like compact biological treatment units. Both treatment trains focus on the goal of reuse and safe disposal of the wastewater or the residues. Next slide, please. Various components and utilization of treatment, or for the treatment, distinguishes the technologies that are primarily used for treating wastewater, such as land treatment, ponds and wetlands, septic tanks without discharge, and compact biological treatment units. The standard list includes aspects to consider, such as land required, distance, and practicality of transporting the effluent from the source to the treatment facility, intended storage, and retention time, and the fertilizer value of the sludge, for example. If you look at the technologies below for primarily treating sludge, we're looking at ponds, drying beds, either planted or unplanted, co-composting, and potential of an anaerobic biogas reactor. The next slide, please. Some examples of wastewater and sludge treatment, and again, these are part of the 24521 2016 current standard, at least the diagrams. In looking at that, you see drying beds generally being used for sludge. Sedimentation thickening ponds are low cost and can be locally constructed. However, the output sludge is still infectious, so care and handling is critical, and no reuse is possible. If we look at some of the planted drying beds or constructed wetlands, the plant combination and maintenance of the proper combinations for treatment is critically important. Ponds may also be degraded by the flow or the type of wastewater, so that's another important consideration that is included in the guidelines of the standard. Next slide, please. In terms of reuse and recovery, we're looking at recovery of resources for an economic use, which is also included in some of the other performance standards being designed. It's always necessary to consider this when designing the on-site domestic wastewater system. The potential reuse for properly treated effluent includes discharge to the natural environment and irrigation. Treated sludge has the potential to be used in a land application process, fertilizer, or soil conditioner, and then there's energy recovery through biogas. Next slide, please. Next slide. Couple of examples of the reuse and discovery. You see in the upper left-hand corner an anaerobic digester with biogas recovery in the Kibera settlement in Nairobi, Kenya. And here the people who utilize the toilet facilities pay a fee and then have access to the methane created, so they can use it for cooking, both in their homes as well as part of the facility where they have a small entertainment center. If off to the right is an interesting process in South Africa, where black soldier fly larvae are used to digest sludge that has been previously heated to destroy the pathogens. And then, of course, in the lower left, that particular treatment process and reuse was described as part of the previous presentation on the Nepal initiatives. And then finally, the overland design allows the wastewater to be applied to a sloping land that contains various plants and vegetation for treatment to occur. It's a low-cost method that's easy to operate and requires little maintenance or energy. However, it is important to ensure that there is proper percolation through the soil. Next slide, please. This is simply a schematic diagram or presentation of the adoption of both the ISO 30500 and ISO 24521 standards. You can see that most of the dual adoption has occurred in Africa, with ISO 24521, as previously noted, also present in Nepal. Updates for this for these approvals are available on the ANSI sanitation website. That's the American National Standards Institute. Next slide, please.
Now that we've gone from the introduction and a little bit more details of the standard itself, we'll be moving into actual implementation. And the next two presenters will be discussing examples. Mr. Alok Misra will be describing the process of national adoption of the standards. Mr. Misra is the Director of at the Nepal Bureau of Standards and Metrology, NBSM, with over 30 years of experience in the field of quality. You look much younger than 30 years of experience, so you must have started when you were 5 years old. So in the area of environment, energy, standards, and conformity assessment, working at different levels of quality infrastructure at the policy level, in a national ministry with service institution. Also worked at the enterprise level in the public sector as a quality manager, experience in national and international standardization. I know this personally, as he's an expert member in the ISO PC 305. He has expertise in product and system certification and standardization, again, at the national, regional, and international levels. So, and with interest in quality infrastructure for sustainable development. Mr. Alak is a chemical engineering graduate. So with that, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah. Good morning, Kim, and good day in Europe, and good evening in Nepal and India and other places. First, I want to tell that two of our experts who represented Nepal in different international meetings for this ISO 24521, one Mr. Indu Bikram Joshi, who is now a joint secretary, and Mr. Ganesh Prasad Pathak, who is now retired from the government service, is also here in the audience, in the group. This, I will just talk about, we have already talked about ISO 24521 and its contents. I will talk about the national side application, more national as an adoption of the national standard. It's not about the implementation of the standard. The other speakers from Nepal, Ms. Roji and Bhavna Madam, will be talking about the implementation in the local bodies. So next slide, please. The other slide. So this is, I have tried to put the development of national standard that has been practiced in Nepal in a brief perspectives in different stages. I have tried to put in how it is practiced at the international level by ISO. So we also practice all these stages: the proposal stage, the preparatory stage, the committee stage, the inquiry stage, the approval stage, and the publication stage. I must tell this that all these stages are not mandatory for every standards. Mostly for those standards we develop from the scratch, the local standards, those has to go through all these stages. For the national adoption, all these stages might not be mandatory. Like for these wastewater and sanitation systems, Nepal till now has adopted 4 standards. The first one was ISO 24521, which was done in early 2020. Then we adopted ISO 24510 and 511. That happened in late 2021, and very recently in the second half of 2023, we also have adopted ISO 30500. So we are talking about 4 standards. 4 standards we have adopted for the sanitation and water system. Can we go to the next slide? So this slide is typically about the national adoption process of ISO international standards. We mostly do it in 2 ways. One is, if we find the standard, we can directly adopt it as a national standard. Then we identify the standard and discuss it in a technical committee and directly go for the adoption. The second part is, first we identify the standard which is suitable for adoption, but after a proper evaluation at the national level, at the national committee level. So all these standards which we are talking about today, were in fact went through the evaluation process. Nepal was a participant as a P member in both the committees, the ISO 224, which develops 3 of these standards, and PC 305, which developed ISO 30500. So Nepal has participated as the P member in the International Technical Committee. And all those 4 standards also went through the discussion in the National Committee for the evaluation. And after that, when the committee, which comprises of all the stakeholders from the different sectors, from academia, from the national this standard body, from the government, from the regulators, from the consumers, when they decided it and found it suitable for the national adoption, then it was proposed. Can we go to the next slide? Then we put for the approval, which is done by a National Council for Standards in Nepal. Now, this National Council of Standards is altogether a different body than the TC. It's not like the approval of an international standards. The technical committee proposes for the national adoption, and the approval is then done by the National Council of Standards, which is represented by a different kind of stakeholders, mostly from the national ministries and others from the industry and consumer organizations. Now, one thing I want to correct here, that this ISO 3500 also has already been accomplished. It is now a national standard of Nepal. Now, through the adoption process, why it became easy for Nepal, I must tell this, that all these 4 of the standards were already on the national agenda of Nepal during the time of the Millennium Development Goals before 2015. Because Nepal is one of the least developed countries, a very considerable population of this country still practice the open defecation. All the household wastage goes untreated to rivers and other areas. And problems from this household waste, I should say that it's a bigger problem in urban areas, because urban areas has more denser population than the other rural areas, where people mostly practice open defecation. But the problem is taken care of by the ecology and ecosystem there. They open defecate, and the ecology itself takes care of the treatment. So it is almost like a safe disposal. But in the urban area where population is dense, and when the household waste goes untreated to the water and system, then it becomes a bigger problem. And sanitation is a job which is looked after by the local bodies. It's the job of local authority in Nepal. Why it was not a problem? Because this standard, ISO 24521, is a guidance standard. It doesn't say anything about the level of wastewater. So it is not in contradiction with any laws related to environment or wastewater disposal. So it becomes a bit easier job for the national standard body to process through the national adoption. Can we go to the next slide? Now, I think these all processes I have already discussed in brief, that we have done. We went through the evaluation process, which was done in a technical subcommittee represented by all the stakeholders. The clause-wise content of the standard was discussed there, and it was agreed upon by all the participants. I should say a consensus was reached at. Consensus for us is unlike the consensus at ISO. It's a kind of general agreement, absence of any sustained opposition, but we do not normally go for voting. We try to build a general agreement on the issue. So a general agreement was reached in the technical subcommittee, and then it was proposed to the National Council of Standards, and then again an agreement was reached there, and then it was approved as the national standard. So now all these 4 standards are the national standards of Nepal also. Before also, we had our stake in this standard, being a member body of ISO. All the standards developed by ISO are also our standard. But after this national adoption process, it becomes a national standard. We have further more privilege related to this standard. We can sell it in our local cost, local currency. We can, our government, the bodies in Nepal can refer this standard in the regulation and their texts. So these are some added facilities that we get after the national adoption of an international standard. Next slide, please. I think I have already gone through these details that the ISO 24521 was adopted as a national standard in early part of 2020. And it is, as far as I know, an undated adoption. So if this standard is under revision now, it will remain intact as a national standard for Nepal. But 24510 and 24511 were adopted as dated reference for 2007. So the latest publication of 2024 edition is not a national standard for the time being. We have to go through a different process to make it to make the amendment a part of our standard. Next slide, please. I think I have already discussed all these things, and the rest of the part about the implementation will be talked about by Rosie, Ms. Rosie. So that's all for my presentation. So these, I think Rosie will talk.
Thank you, Alok, and thank you for describing the process for national adoption within Nepal. And I'll share in the chat a link where the national adoption in different countries are happening, and certainly Nepal is a leader in pushing these through. And then the work that's happening in the municipality as well as in other areas. And I would like to just mention that it's really great to see, Alok, you mentioned that Nepal is struggling, and so many countries are struggling with sanitation, and it really is a human right issue. So it's really great to see partners in Nepal working very hard for this. So with that, so like I said, I'll share a link that shows adoption happening within Nepal as well as in many other countries, so which is quite exciting. And thank you also for pointing out that the folks that have been working in this area from Nepal, Indu and Ganesh, and it's really great to see everyone. Thank you. So with that, I'd like to introduce Ms. Rosie Singh. She is a project manager at the Environment and Public Health Organization, INFO, an NGO working in water, sanitation, and hygiene, as well as public health and environment in Nepal. She is responsible for managing and providing overall leadership to the project on implementing the fecal sludge management ISO standard in municipalities of Nepal. Ms. Singh possesses more than 17 years of experience working in development sector, from project management, knowledge management, communication, documentation, media, and advocacy. She has received 3 separate prestigious gold medals from the former King of Nepal, former Queen, and also the former President. Well done. She is also the recipient of the Yvonne Herbert Fund to attend the Commission on the Status of Women 56 at the United Nations headquarters in New York City. Ms. Singh holds a bachelor's degree in computer science, as well as a master's degree in anthropology from Tribhuvan University in Nepal. With that, I would like to welcome Rosie.
Thank you so much, San, for the kind introduction. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I'm very pleased to share and present about how Nepal has implemented pilot implementation of this ISO 24521 in one of the municipalities of Nepal, which is Mahalakshmi municipality. We'll be sharing about what we have done and how the municipality has been able to institutionalize and implement throughout this entire sanitation value chain. Next slide, please. As in many countries across the world, urban sanitation is one of the challenging issues in Nepal as well. The non-sewered sanitation systems, it's basically poor and unregulated because of the unsafe disposal of fecal sludge into the water bodies and environment, due to which there has been the threat of many waterborne diseases, creating the risk to public health and the environment as well. So in order to protect both the environment and the public health, environment and public health organization, it's basically the non-government organization which is working in water sanitation and hygiene, with the support from Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, has supported Mahalakshmi municipality, and by which the municipality has implemented this ISO 24521 for the management of basic on-site domestic wastewater services. And Mahalakshmi municipality becomes the first municipality in Nepal and also maybe across the world to implement this ISO standard, and has been also been the model city for many other cities across the nation. And the learnings and the experiences and the achievements have also been replicated in many other municipalities in Nepal. Next slide, please. To briefly mention about the municipality, it is one of the 18 municipalities of Kathmandu Valley in Nepal, and 67% of the households in the municipality rely on non-sewered sanitation system, and more than 32,000 households exist in the municipality. Next slide, please. To start with, the municipality has first and foremost developed this regulatory tool, which is the fecal sludge management bylaws for the regulation and to overall manage all the on-site domestic wastewater services within the municipality. And this is the first ever on-site sanitation legal instrument in Nepal as well. And after the development of FSM bylaws by the Mahalakshmi municipality, now like almost more than 20 municipalities, they have already developed this bylaws. And all the non-sewered sanitation services are operationalized and regulated in the municipality according to this bylaws. So this basically binds the municipality and all the citizens to implement and work on the non-sewered sanitation services within the municipality. Next slide, please. Basically, after the detailed sanitation situation assessment within the municipality, it showed that most of the containments within the municipality, they are basically the holding tanks. So the first initiation that the municipality took was to institutionalize and then to implement the construction of standard septic tanks in order to achieve the safe containment in the municipality. For that purpose, the municipality has institutionalized this construction of the standard septic tank in the building design permit itself, which means that whenever any households or whenever any buildings are constructed, the building completion certificates are provided by the municipality to only those households which have constructed standard septic tanks. Otherwise, those households, they will not receive the building completion certificates, and they will be restricted from the municipal other services as well. So that has been institutionalized within the municipality, and that has been possible with the development of the institutional and monitoring mechanism developed by the municipality itself, which means the construction of the standard septic tanks are monitored, strictly monitored, and the compliance check are done basically at two levels. One is at the design level, which means the designers, they should submit the design standard septic tank design, and the other is the compliance is checked at the field level, which means the responsible person from the municipality, he or she will go to the field and then monitor at the field itself whether the constructed septic tanks are the standard or not. So if the compliance is met both at the design and at the construction level, then only the building completion certificates are provided to those households. Next slide, please. So here is the glimpses that there is the assigned field coordinator, field monitoring person who goes to the field, and then with the help of the sanitation app that has been developed in the municipality, she monitors the septic tank, constructed septic tank, enters all the values that meets the standard guideline, and there has been developed the standard septic tank design manual as well, according to which if the household meets all the criteria of the standard septic tanks, then only the building design completion certificate is provided. So there is also the glimpse that the municipality, they themselves has developed this the monitoring and inspection mechanism within the municipality to conduct this monitoring in the field and at the design at both level. Next slide, please. Now, in case of the older buildings which do not contain the standard septic tanks, there the municipality has also carried out the renovation work through the containment improvement work with the support of innovative technologies. For example, there's ready to install septic tanks which are portable and ready to install within a day. And with the help of such technologies, the municipality is also gradually improving the previously constructed containments which are not according to the standard designs. Next slide, please. One of the major things that need to be ensured within this guideline is the occupational health and safety. And for that purpose, in order to ensure the occupational health and safety of all the sanitation workers who are basically involved from the construction of the septic tanks, as well as during this dislodging and the transportation services of the fecal sludge. With the support from ENFO, the capacity building programs have been organized, and they have been trained on occupational health and safety, as well as the public awareness campaigns have been intensively carried out within the municipality under the leadership of municipal ward chairpersons and with the help of the youth volunteers, so that all the citizens are aware about the fecal sludge management on-site sanitation systems, as well as the importance of the safe containment. And as a result, the fecal sludge dislodgers, as well as the fecal sludge treatment plant operators and the sanitation workers who are involved in this business, they have been ensuring about the occupational health and safety, wearing the personal protective equipments, and ensuring their own health and safety measures are taken care of while at work. Next slide, please. And in order to, for the purpose of the capacity building, various measures, various tools have been used. For example, various posters, manuals have been developed, which have been widely disseminated in the municipality. And also the animated video on occupational health and safety has also been developed. And through the help of the social media and social boosting, that has been widely distributed and widely disseminated in the municipality. Next slide, please. Similarly, various trainings have been conducted in the municipality, basically for the masons in regard to the construction of standard septic tanks, and also in order to ensure that the designers, they design the standard septic tanks. Trainings have been provided to the municipal engineers as well as the consultant engineers who are registered within the municipality, and the trainings were also provided to the municipal officials on integrated municipal information system for storing the data, and then in use of the sanitation apps, which is basically used for monitoring the safe containment in the municipality. Next slide, please. Now, the municipality also ensures that the dislodged fecal slurs is well treated, and for that purpose, it has the constructed fecal slurs treatment plant at Lubu in municipality, which is the prefabricated fecal slurs treatment plant at Lubu with the capacity of 6 meter cube per week. And the service providers, they have been they have the agreement, and then the dislodged fecal slurs is then disposed in this treatment plant. Next slide, please. The Lubu fecal slurs treatment plant has been providing the services with the safe disposal as well as reuse of the treated fecal slurs. The biogas which is produced from the treatment plant is used by the fecal slurs treatment plant operator. The compost and the treated wastewater both is being used for the agriculture purpose, and the produce from the farming, which is within the fecal slurs treatment plant area itself, is sufficient to provide vegetables for 40 orphans, which is run by the local NGO in the municipality. Next slide, please. In order to ensure that the data and the monitoring system is strengthened within the municipality. Mahalakshmi municipality is also the first municipality in Nepal to establish this integrated municipal information system. And this is the information system which provides overall information about the sanitation and also other interrelated departments of the municipality, providing and supporting the municipality for efficient planning, management, and monitoring of the sanitation systems and services. So this system provides overall every information related with the sanitation systems, so that the information are digitalized, and through the dashboard in the integrated municipal information system, the data and information is readily and easily accessible. Next slide, please. The crucial factors on the responsibility and the sustainability to ensure that all these initiatives undertaken by the municipality remains sustainable. The municipality has established a dedicated unit, which is the sanitation cell, which oversees all the sanitation related activities in the entire municipality. It has developed and institutionalized the monitoring mechanism, which is developed by the municipality itself for ensuring the construction of the standard septic tanks. It has also developed the sanitation service delivery model of the fecal sludge treatment plant in the municipality. And basically, this treatment plant works in the operational model that the municipality is providing the support for the monitoring its operation, and then providing the maintenance budget of the treatment plant. Similarly, the Help for Children Belarus, which is the local NGO in the municipality, is responsible for overall management and operation of the fecal sludge treatment plant, whereas INFO has been providing the technical support with the various capacity building programs that is required for operation of the treatment plants. And the Occupational Health and Safety Manual and Standard Operating Procedure of the treatment plant has also been developed, and according to which the treatment plant is being operating. Likewise, to strengthen the data and information, and then to strengthen the monitoring mechanism within the municipality, the integrated municipal information system is being well established and is being well implemented in the municipality, which provides the updated and real-time data at any point of time. And with the help of the sanitation apps and the integration of IMIs with the electronic building permit system, the data and information is being recorded and is also being able to monitor by any person within the municipality. So everything that has been implemented within the municipality has been institutionalized within the municipal system, so that it's not specific to the any leader. So it is being ensured that the change in the leadership will not affect the system, and basically with the support and with the ownership of the municipality itself, Mahalakshmi municipality has been able to establish as the model city, and for other municipalities to replicate this initiative as well. With this, I would like to end my presentation, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rosie. It is really great to see the work at Mahalakshmi municipality that INFO and so many others have contributed to, and also then to replicate that in other municipalities, and really to be able to replicate this in other countries. It is super exciting. Now, Ms. Bhawana Sharma, the executive director of INFO, was going to describe more details of how you implement that further, and the licensing, and also the oversight. But unfortunately, she is taken ill, so she will not be able to present. But her presentation will be included when the recording and this goes through. But yeah, really exciting work, and I know so many people have contributed to this work, but the work still continues and is a big challenge. So very exciting. The one question that was asked, Indu from Nepal, the question was, do you have information of ISO, if ISO is developing a standard on this rather than just a guideline? So I think it's related to more requirements rather than just guideline. I don't have the answer to that question, but I'm wondering if Ron, you or Mr. Kate, or anyone else might have an answer to that question.
Well, the question is, basically ISO standards can be guidelines. So there's no, it's not but I think, like you said, the question is if there's going to be a standard with like requirements where you have and at the moment that's not planned to have that kind of a standard. Because it's actually the idea is that these standards that have been developed, both the ISO 24521 and also 24525, are guidance for authorities that will be making regulations. And because we realized that the regulation and the system and the regulatory systems and the context is so different throughout the world that you can't really make an international requirements. That have to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think what's happening in Nepal with the national adoption that Alok talked about, and then the bylaws at the municipality level that Rosie talked about is really an example of how you have to customize and for the local context. So absolutely. So with that, I would like to thank everyone, and thank you so much for your patience, and really appreciate this third webinar. And as a quick plug, there will be a fourth and final webinar related to ISO 31800, which is the bigger fecal sludge treatment units, which will be coming up in the next month or so. So with that, thank you so much, and I'll bid you all goodbye. Thank you.